Welcome to the Fortuna Admissions video vlogs. My name is Matt Symonds. I'm a director at Fortuna. I'm very lucky to work with close to 40 former directors and associate directors of admissions from the top schools. In fact, I have colleagues that worked at 13 of the top 15 schools. Today, I'm joined by Julie Ferguson, who was a senior associate director at Chicago Booth and also worked at Wharton's Lauder Institute. Hey, Julie.
Hi, Matt. Nice to be here.
Great. Well, with these series, of course, we cover a whole range of admissions-related subjects for business schools. And I think today we were going to talk about a resume. You know, that document that so many of you as your admissions officers, this is one of the first piece of paper that you were looking at, and what candidates can do to beef up their resume between now and applying to schools. So where would you like to start? Why is the resume so important?
Well, the resume is really important because it's going to show the admissions committee sort of your track record thus far. And whether you have 3 years of experience or you're on the older end of the spectrum with, 7, 8, 9 years of experience, the admissions committee is going to want to see some consistency across what your choices have been thus far in your career. So what companies have you worked for, whether they're big or small, what roles have you played, and what experiences you've had actually working for those companies in terms of experiences of giving you leadership opportunities and growth opportunities in your professional life.
And presumably when you're working in the admissions offices at Wharton Lauder and at Chicago Booth, I mean, you were reading resumes every day, right, during that busy season?
Yes, resumes every day. So it's really important to really try to keep your resume to one page. So especially if you are 24 years old, 25 years old, you've had a few years of work experience, no one is expecting to read a 5-page resume. If you are someone that has a PhD and you've had tons of work experience and a lot of education, your resume might be a little bit longer. But for a sort of a general rule of thumb, a 1-page resume is really going to be your best way to quickly, concisely, and specifically present your information to the admissions committee. So as an admissions person reading, hundreds and thousands of resumes, not hundreds and thousands, but 100s and 1000s resumes, your brain will start to just sort of go down this black hole if you get past, sort of a page to 2 pages in your resume.
Now tell me, from all of those hundreds, thousands of resumes that you read, would you start at the top, education, current position, or would you sneak down to the bottom of the page and find out those sort of extracurriculars, passions, hobbies that people would have?
Yeah, I tend to be a little bit of a rule follower, and I will start at the beginning and work my way to the end. So there's a few different ways to set up your resume, a few different sort of formats and templates to set it up. And what I would do for myself is think about what is going to catch the reader's attention almost immediately, what's going to be the most interesting. That may be your education, or it may be extracurriculars, even though that's a very sort of non-traditional way to present your resume, but you're in the context of the entire application and how you want to present yourself, you're really just trying to find all the different ways to make yourself stand out and to kind of get yourself noticed by the person that's reading your application.
Right. And we sometimes think that certain parts of the application are set in stone. But the resume, if you're several months away from applying, there's a lot you can do, both in how you might structure, describe some of those roles, responsibilities, the leadership growth that was implicit with the different projects that you perhaps took on, and boosting your resume, whether it's in terms of extracurriculars and volunteer work. So perhaps you can talk us through that.
Yeah, so definitely in the time in between sort of the spring and the fall where round 1 comes up, and then following round 2 and round 3, there's a lot that you can be doing to boost your resume, so to speak, in terms of not only what you're doing at work. So can you get yourself put onto projects that will be a little bit more interesting, not only for the resume itself, but also for your own personal and professional growth? Are there leadership opportunities that you could be taking on within your workspace? So are there certain committee groups that are more on a volunteer basis that you could be participating on at work? Or is there something you could be doing with your direct supervisor to help, so that they can help coach you through sort of a better leadership experience, or to make you a better manager, so that can translate a little bit more in your resume? The other thing that you can do on your resume, especially if you don't have anything to put in an extracurricular activity section, is to think about what are some of the activities and exercises that you can be involved in now, between now and your application, that will really be supportive and complementary to how you're presenting yourself to the admissions committee. So if you're saying that you want to move from investment banking into working in the nonprofit sector, then are you doing any sort of nonprofit work right now? Are you involved in any sort of a nonprofit organization doing volunteer work? If not, you might want to consider, how can I get involved in that and really boost every single part of your resume, not just the professional part, but also the personal part of it.
Right. Talking to Kirsten Moss, the admissions director at Stanford, there's a school with this big vision, change lives, change the world. And I think, sometimes applicants can be tempted to then talk about how they're going to eradicate poverty or provide clean drinking water solutions in sub-Saharan Africa. But of course, if you or your peers at Stanford looked through the resume, and if they don't find any demonstration of a passion for clean drinking water, whatever that might be, that big vision can fall pretty flat, right? And actually hurt your chances in the evaluation.
Yeah, because then it just seems like you're writing something that plays to what they're looking for, instead of writing something that is authentic to you and that truly is something that's important and of value to you. So if your vision for what you want post MBA, so your career goals, doesn't really match anything that you've done or anything that you have been trying to do, there's going to be a disconnect when the person's reading your application.
But what about making some hard choices on your resume? You've through college, early stages of your career, you've almost, we'll see this at Fortuna, where someone has this sort of laundry list of all of the extracurriculars and varsity and the clubs, and they were president of this. Can you actually end up sort of overwhelming the admissions office, or somehow diluting and the idea, well, you checked all of these boxes, but I don't see a real focus in all of the different things you've done?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, because a lot of people tend to sort of go down their timeline back into sort of middle school even, and look at their extracurricular activities and want to list some of that. And one of the things that I like to do with my clients is to say, okay, let's start with your most recent activities, and then we'll start to work our way back. And when it just starts to sort of fall off a cliff in terms of that really has nothing to do with applying to business school or what you want to do with your MBA, that's where we have the cutoff. If someone has really prolific in their extracurricular activities and there's a lot of good stuff there, then it just becomes a question of, I think, looking at it from the perspective of the school and targeting your resume for the school. So including some of your extracurricular activities for, say, a Stanford, and then creating a different mix of extracurricular activities for something like a Chicago Booth or a Wharton. I think that that's just a good strategy in general, to have, a targeted resume per the school and what they're looking for out of their candidates.
One final scenario, we'll talk to individuals in August, maybe a month before those round one deadlines. They're private equity analysts, or they're working in investment banking, they're strategy consultants. And since coming out of college, they've been working 80, 90-hour weeks and, perhaps have not had the time. Should they now, start walking puppies at the animal shelter? I mean, I love puppies and would love to think they get the exercise, right? But would that not look calculated or kind of shallow at that late stage?
Yeah. So first of all, everyone loves puppies, right? So you can't go wrong with that. It can. So you have to be really careful about your timing with adding an extracurricular activity to your resume. So it really does still have to make sense with what your current lifestyle is and, what you want to do. And I do think that, most admissions people understand that there are certain industries where people work. That's all they do, right? They literally eat, sleep, and work at their desk. And the expectation to see, 5 extracurricular activity in your resume for someone that works in that type of industry isn't realistic. But if you can sneak one thing in there, and say, I don't have a lot of free time, but I do try to dedicate, an hour a week to this activity that means a lot to me. Even if it's something that's more of a self-care activity, right? It doesn't always have to be something that is not volunteering for nonprofit. It could be something that you're just doing for yourself that shows the committee that you understand how important it is to sort of keep yourself aligned and focused and able to then continue to do your job.
Well, lots of great ideas for boosting a resume, and of course, part of your work with clients putting together these compelling applications. We also have people like Jody in the team,
yep.
Who continues to work on the resumes of Wharton students with her position there. So thanks for sharing these ideas. I hope that viewers, you found those useful. Pull out those resumes and start to think about how you can improve them. And of course, feel free to reach out to us to share those resumes with us so that we can give you some very candid and hopefully some very helpful feedback. This was one of the Fortuna Admissions video series, and we hope that you enjoyed it, and we'll check out the rest of them that are available on our site and on YouTube.